Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband News. This is Rick Usey with Zcorum. So there are two analysts with the ITIF that are recommending that the maximum that should be allowed for BEAD deployment, as far as for fiber, let's say anything that would not be extremely high cost, should be $1,200. I'll be right back with more. Hey, thanks for joining me again. Rick Usey here with Zcorum with Broadband News. So I want to take a look at this. So this is actually, is that what I'm looking for? Yeah. All right. So this is on policy band. I'm going to read through this summary of what these guys are recommending. There's a link in here to their full full thing that they published. But this summary, I think, is a good summary of what they're asking for. I want to just comment on this. So you see here, DC memo, cap BEAD grants at $1,200 per location, ITIF analysts say. So that's the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. So this is one of the probably many think tanks in Washington, D.C. that, researches things and has policy statements, and quite often are kind of lobbying for certain groups. A lot of times they have a conservative bent, maybe a liberal bent. This one I looked at, and if you look at the board, just cursory look. Okay, so you got Chris Coons, Democrat, Susan DelBene, I guess maybe, I believe Democrat, yeah. Darrell Issa, Republican, California, and then you got Todd Young, Democrat. Republican. And then you've got co-chairs, board members, et cetera. Blair Levin's on here. So, and I linked to this site, and I linked to the article that I'm looking at if you want to check that out. So this one seems to be, if you look at just who's on the board there anyway, it seems to be kind of bipartisan. You've got a couple of people on there that, have differing views, obviously. But I think as I look at this and kind of read through some things, this seems to be more on the Republican-leaning side, because it's talking about they don't believe you should really be focusing on fiber and BEAD, and they talk a lot about Starlink. So I'm wondering, as I read through this, was Elon Musk, are they buddies with Elon Musk? Because Elon Musk is buddies with Donald Trump. When I say buddies, I mean are they kind of making the case for him and what they want to do there with satellite broadband, let's say, versus fiber. So you see here again, it says the Trump administration should reject any state BEAD plan that includes a per location cost higher than $1,200, according to this new analysis. It's Ellis Shearer and Joe Kane at this ITIF. The proposal released yesterday said NTIA, when was it? Was it yesterday? Yeah, today, actually. I guess released yesterday, but proposal released yesterday said NTIA should not allow states to spend billions on costly fiber projects when less expensive alternatives such as Starlink and fixed wireless are reliable and available. In short, low Earth orbit satellites are often the most economical way to get high-speed broadband in rural areas, even when accounting for monthly service charges. And yeah, obviously, if you have somebody on the top of a mountain, and it would be really, really, really expensive to get fiber to them, and even fixed wireless might be a problem, then satellite's a great alternative. We've already seen some states have put satellite in their plans in these locations, but it should be few and far between. We should not be saying that just because satellite is so much less expensive, hey, let's just go ahead and roll it out. I heard a statement like that, I think it was either Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. One of them was like, we could have taken all of this money and gotten everybody Starlink service. Well, that's great for those people that have terrible broadband now. They would enjoy that for some period of time, but that is not for the future. That's not a good idea. Satellite broadband can only go so fast, and they're making it sound like that's fine. But then we'll be going back to the well again when we need faster speeds. We don't want to be doing that. In short, they say, we mentioned that. Okay, so with LEO, that's low Earth orbit option, on the table, there's no reason to press forward with far more expensive fiber projects, they said. And I totally disagree, because, again, this is what we're trying to do here, is end the fact that we have to keep going back to the well. These guys are really young. In fact, I'll show you here. So let's see what we got here. So this is Joe Kane, Director of Broadband and Spectrum Policy. You can look at his bio if you want to click on that later. Then we got Ellis Shearer, Research Assistant. These guys are young. I think graduating. I think this guy graduated in like 2020. I think he got his master's after that. This guy I think graduated in 2017. He's just recently got his JD. So they're pretty young. They don't have a lot of life experience, and they don't have a lot of broadband experience as far as what's gone on in the past. Because if you've been around like I have, you remember when broadband, 10 by 4 at one point. Well, at one point it was in the megabits per second, right? So if anything over, 256K might have been broadband, considering in the early days. Then it was like 10 by 4, huge increase over what it was before. And then 25 by 3, huge increase. Maybe it wasn't 10 by 4, maybe it was 10 by 1. Then a huge increase, 25 by 3, right? And now 25 by 3 is what we're trying to get away from. And yeah, satellite can do, if you're in a good area, can do over 100 megabits per second. And maybe on the upstream, you can maybe get, I think, 20, 30. You can get over 20, not a whole lot over 20, at least right now with what's up there. And it's very expensive to keep these satellites up there. They only have a 5-year or so life. And you got to start replacing them. So it's going to be expensive to do this. Not something you want to be relying on, especially as, again, 10 by 4, 25 by 3, that was thought to be plenty fast enough not too long ago for the needs that people had. And now we know that's not the case because things change. We have people doing more and more with their broadband service as we start to do things like maybe augmented reality, virtual reality, other kinds of high bandwidth needs. Let's say that 2-3 years down the road, we're looking around. It's like, this satellite service isn't nearly fast enough, and they're not going to be able to replace all those satellites and get anything faster anytime soon. Fixed wireless is going to be kind of limited on the spectrum that you have and the speed you can go. Now it's gotten faster over time, but not like fiber. Fiber, if you put fiber in the ground today and you put in, let's say, Nokia equipment, and you can easily put in a GPON card, you can put in an XGS PON card, you can put in a 25G PON card, and you can be running it in the same equipment. Just put a new card in the shelf. You don't have to change out the fiber. That's the way to go. As we start to see the increase in demand for bandwidth and applications, we don't want to be sitting 2, 3, 5 years down the road and being sorry that we spent money on satellite service. Satellite service is great. Like I say, if there are areas that are hard to reach, people now that get it love it because they had nothing before. Maybe they had 10 by 1 DSL, couldn't do anything. And again, 10 by 1 in the past was awesome, right? It was awesome, but it didn't take long before that was not awesome. So people who get Starlink love it. It's apparently fairly reliable. It's way faster than what they had before. So they love it. Big fans. But again, it's not for the long haul, and it's not for everywhere. It's really for your hard to reach areas. That's the whole point of it, right? So it says here, let's see, NTIA last week approved Nevada's BEAD plan that awarded $22 million to Beehive Broadband at an average location cost of $77,013. That's really high, okay? I didn't look into this. That's really high, especially if it says average per location cost. I mean, you're going to have some locations that are going to be that high. Maybe that Beehive was one of the folks that, I didn't look into this, but maybe they're one of the folks that bid in a really expensive area and they came in with this. And if Nevada had enough money for fiber, then they decided this was the right number. I don't know how many locations this was, this average. That does seem really high. But they want a $1,200 cap. So they say a $1,200 cap would cover the cost of high-end Starlink terminal, a high-end Starlink terminal, and provide a $25 a month discount on service for 2 years, they said, and they want the money saved from their approach to support programs like the ACP. So $25 a month for 2 years, but then 2 years is over, right? So it funds that. And that service, I believe, it is about $120 now, I think. I know it's over $100 per month to get Starlink. That's not cheap. It funds the Starlink terminal. But, again, the speeds are going to be limited. They're only going to be able to go so fast. So anybody that you do this for is going to be limited for bandwidth, and as each year goes on, that's going to become more apparent. It won't be apparent at first. They'll be very happy, but as certain new applications come out, and maybe even as more people get on Starlink, because that's one of the things with Starlink, as more people get on the service, the speeds go down. If you start putting lots of people on Starlink in some of these areas, then Starlink's going to have to launch more satellites. If they don't, then the speeds are going to go down. And that's part of, I think, what maybe where the BEAD money would have to go would be not just providing this discount for 2 years, which, that's nice, but you also have to consider the fact that you do have infrastructure floating above your head, and the more people that you put on that infrastructure, the more satellites that Starlink has to launch. And it's not just Starlink, by the way. So it mentioned Starlink in here, but you've got Amazon Kuiper out there that is also would like to be involved in BEAD. So when folks do put satellite service as an alternative technology, they're not necessarily saying Starlink. They're talking about somebody like Starlink or Amazon Kuiper, and that is certainly a potential competitor to Starlink based on when some of these deployments are going to happen. It could be that Kuiper would be ready to provide service in areas. Let's see. So again, they want to take the money and put it towards affordability rather than saying, okay, let's get fiber everywhere. I would rather let's get fiber everywhere that we can. There are going to be some areas where it won't be possible, and the NTIA has made alternative technologies available where you've got an extremely high cost threshold. Then you can say, okay, if it's over this, you can look at other alternative technologies. $1,200 is way too low for that. That would be too many alternative technologies out there. We don't need to be doing that. It says here, no state is too far along in the BEAD process to make changes that set a more realistic threshold, high cost threshold, to make their deployment plans more affordable. In other words, they haven't gotten that far down the road, so maybe we can change this now. While technically true, the high throughput of fiber is no reason to prioritize it at extreme cost. The vast majority of broadband use doesn't require anywhere near gigabit speed, they said. So, and again, this is true. I totally agree with this, certainly on the upstream. And on the downstream, 100 is great, 200, 300, depends on what you're doing. If you're streaming 4K movies and you got multiple people in the house, you're doing a stream like I'm doing, and you want to make sure that you've got enough bandwidth to do those things, you might want more than 100. You might want something like a gig. And those kinds of things are going to be, those kinds of things, more upload kinds of applications. And like I mentioned, there's going to be more applications on the download that are going to be bandwidth intensive. You're going to, at one point, a gig you're going to want. And at one point, you might even want 5 gigs and 10 gigs and 25 gigs further down the road. And if you're sitting there with satellite, then you're going to have to go back on, if you have a lot of locations that you've put in fixed wireless, you've spent money, let's say BEAD money, to put in fixed wireless and satellite, then again, we're going to have to go back to the well. There's going to be another program sometime in the future. Don't know what it's going to be called, but it's going to be like, okay, well, let's finish out what we tried to do. And that's what we're doing now. We are actually trying to finish what we've tried to do several times. And part of the problem, and I want to be fair about this, part of the problem is broadband has been a moving target. So like I said, 10 by 1 seemed good. Hey, let's pay to give everybody 10 by 1 service, and we were allowing DSL in there. And what did we find out about that? Well, you know what? DSL can only go so fast. And now we've got DSL infrastructure out there that needs to be replaced with fiber or something else, hopefully fiber. If you got DSL out there, might as well do fiber, right? So we're having to replace that technology because it can only go so fast. So we'd be doing the same exact thing with fixed wireless and with satellite. If we do that wholesale, let's say at a $1,200 extremely high cost per location threshold, then we're going to be going back to the well with another program later. And we're going to be looking back, these young guys that don't remember that, are going to be looking back and going, wow, why are we having to do this again? Well, it's because, you pushed a technology that was not future-proof. And fiber is as future-proof as you can get, like I said. I mean, with once the fiber's in the ground, you can go over that medium and just change out some technology on each end, change out the lasers, change out whatever. Again, put cards on the shelf to be able to go faster and faster. And you don't have to then be funding that. That's something that the companies that are providing that service can do under their normal budgetary operations and capital expenditures, and we don't need to be funding that. So that is my thought is how you go. And again, there's a link, I didn't link, but there's a link up here at the top, right there, new analysis that you can check it out. And you can read through the whole thing if you want. I've got some key takeaways, intro, brief overview of BEAD, Brief overview of satellite. So again, I think there's definitely something going on here with satellite. They are really pushing the satellite thing. It does mention Amazon here has plans to launch a constellation. It talks about performance metrics. Starlink satellite launches before and after BEAD was established. So I think this was just the trajectory that was going on. It's, Elon Musk started it back here, and then he's been launching more and more satellites in the constellation. You have to keep launching satellites to be able to get, again, the bandwidth that you need. So you've got to have more satellites in the constellation above a certain area to have more bandwidth, and then of course to cover the whole Earth, where you want to be covering, you've got to have more satellites to be able to go around the whole Earth. So yeah, that's got to happen. That's part of it. Deployment service cost, less money toward deployment means more affordability. Again, that should be handled separately. Let's get broadband to everybody. And when I say get broadband to everybody, I don't mean if somebody doesn't want broadband, that doesn't mean you have to make them take it. So let's just make it where they can get it. And then if they want to get it, they can get it. So again, I don't, a lot of times we think it's too expensive, and really what it is the person just doesn't think it's worth it. And that's important. They could afford it if they wanted it. They don't want it. Some of that may be older folks that, it's like, you know what, I don't do the internet much. Could be younger people that are on their mobile phones all day long. It's like, I don't need a home internet connection. I can do everything I want to do right now on my phone. So there's a lot of that stuff. We don't need to be making a home broadband connection affordable if the person doesn't want it. That's just a waste of money. That's as much a waste of money as is putting in broadband that's not going to be future-proof. Let's get the broadband there, and then we can put together affordability programs for those people that want it but can't afford it. And that can be separate legislation, like we had the ACP. And it needs to be legislation, or I don't know. The problem with legislation is then you got to keep funding it. I always like the idea of maybe funding it through. Number one, you got to make it where it really is people that really need it, and not what is it? It's almost a third of every household qualified for the ACP. So that's unsustainable. That means you've got 2/3 of the households paying for 1/3 of the households. I think it was that much. So you don't want that. It needs to be something where people who really can't afford it can get it, rather than throwing a whole bunch of programs out there. If you qualify for this or this or this or this or any of these things, this whole pile of things, if you qualify for that, then we give you the ACP. It needs to be a higher bar in order to be able to get that, because you want to be able to provide it for people that can't afford it. And the ACP, the way it was set up, with $14 billion in the ACP that lasted about 2 years, something like that. And that was as it was growing. So the numbers were going up and up and up and up. So today, if you had the same number of people, 22 million or whatever it was, that would sign up for that, it wouldn't last nearly that long. So anyway, that should be handled separately. So I don't think it's a good idea. I think there is an agenda there, maybe for the satellite broadband. You got two of the guys from this think tank that are saying this. They are the ones that are putting that message forward. I would imagine there's people in there that feel differently, maybe on the Democrat side. It's interesting, because the Republicans, I think some of it is not invented here. So it's like, okay, the whole, the NTIA that put this whole thing together and was looking at the priority of fiber broadband, that was a Democratic initiative, right? A Democratic Party. And it could be not invented here, so we're just going to switch back the other direction. And you'll see that happen on both sides. It's kind of like when Joe Biden came into office, and then suddenly, and even before Joe Biden came into office, when Donald Trump was in office, for some reason, suddenly border security was a bad thing. When everybody agreed border security was an important thing before Trump came into office. And then Biden comes into office and he reverses everything as far as border security. We saw what happened there. Well, this could be the same kind of thing where it's like, fiber broadband bad because it was the Biden administration. That's a terrible way to think. Let's not do that, right? Let's look at what's good and what's bad and try to make a decision based on that. Thanks for joining me today. If this was interesting, if you give me a like on the video. If you're not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell, just to make sure you're notified when I'm live. And I will see you next time for Broadband News. Thanks. Bye-bye.